What a great kick.
And Chad Townsend plays on. Plays to the whistle. Kicks away for Valentine Holmes. Cronulla's in again.
Wow.
Chad Townsend, brilliant.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Talk of the Town podcast. My name is Chad Townsend, and today coming to you in isolation from home, and I'm lucky enough to have on the call today Matty Jay, our head of athletic performance at the Sharks. Matty, thanks for coming on today, mate.
Thanks, Chatty. Thanks for having me, mate. It's good to have something to do in this isolation period and keep me away from the kids, mate. So I appreciate being here.
So what have you been doing in isolation, mate? Obviously, we're not allowed to go into the club at the moment, but how you been spending your time?
To be honest, I've been pretty busy, Chatty. As you know, I've rolled out a online platform for all you blokes, so you can access your training, your strength, your speed, your power, everything you need to tick you over and make sure you're ready for when we return. And it's a pretty intensive process in terms of just learning a new system, pushing all that information out to you blokes. And then also been spending a fair bit of time just jumping on phone calls with you guys and just checking in and seeing how the training's going, seeing how you're going in isolation. So that's taken up a fair bit of my time, mate. Obviously, as most of us with families, would be doing, spending a fair bit of time with the family, which is good. Normal work days are generally, 6 till 6, so you don't get too much time at home. So it's good to spend a little bit of time with the family, getting some training in, mate. I've got a nice little home gym set up here, which is good. So getting some training in, which I'm enjoying, and then just, catching up on reading and catching up on some professional development stuff that, has been on the back burner across the course of preseason, and when time, you're pretty much time poor and everything's going into work. So yeah, spending my time pretty wisely, mate, and enjoying it. So not too stir crazy just yet.
So you mentioned the online platform which we're using at the moment. Obviously works well in terms of how we're sort of in isolation, how you sort of create the programs, distribute it through this platform and app. Have you come across any problems with the app?
Yeah, it's just teething problems, mate, that you're going to have with any introduction of a new system and new technology. So just firstly, teething problems with me learning the ins and outs of the system. So the guys that gave us the system were good enough to connect from America, and I had a nice little Zoom chat with them the ins and outs of everything. So that reduced some of those teething problems. And then also just, I'm trying to get, 36 guys on a platform in a short amount of time. You're always going to have teething problems. Some guys' phones don't work. Some guys' emails are wrong. There's problems with the passwords, all those little technical things that we can sort pretty easy when we're face to face. But a bit of tech support has been my role with the boys rolling out this system. But we're 95% of the way there, and we're getting some good results. As you know, you're using the system, and all the stuff is on there. You guys can post pictures. You can input your loads. It's a great avenue to track, your wellness and your body weight. So we're still getting a heap of information that's going to inform the performance stuff and the coaching stuff.
Yeah. So I guess
doing in isolation to come.
I guess for people out there who might not be or might not know the app that we're using, it's called Bridge. And basically it's a platform where Matty and our physical performance staff are able to implement their programs for us to access through an app. And as Matty also mentioned, there's wellness on there. So obviously, how we're feeling throughout the day, we're able to, tick that box off. And then obviously there's weights programs, there's speed programs, there's conditioning programs, there's off-feet cardio programs. So I think so far, mate, it's been, for me personally, I've really enjoyed using the platform. But Have you seen many of the photos from the boys that have been posted on there?
Yeah, the boys have posted some photos and given some audio, which is good. Session or boys are even posting videos of their lifts. So, the coach in me can provide some coaching cue feedback there. So that's really good. And it's good to see, most people are tech savvy these days. So it's good to see the majority of the squad engaging with the platform. And it's something different. But it's really serving its purpose in these strange circumstances that we find ourselves in at the moment.
All right. So obviously, you and I, we could literally talk for hours on a whole range of topics in terms of, physical performance, but I kind of wanted to give like a broad overview today, to our listeners, some sort of basic stuff, I guess, but also a little bit of an insight about what goes on with our training at the Sharks. So I wanted to touch on, firstly, preseason. Now, obviously, physically, mentally, it's the hardest time of the year, but could you tell people or explain what the main objective is of this time of the season?
Well, to put it simply, it's to prepare, our players, their bodies to deal with the demands of week in, week out rugby league. As you know, in the season, Chatty, rugby league can be a brutal game at times, and if you're not prepared to deal with the running and the collision demands of the game, you're going to fall by the wayside, and that may be through injury or it may be through lack of selection because you're not meeting the physical requirements that the coach has of you. So in a nutshell, that's the main reason. But if we dig into that a little bit deeper, it's a great opportunity to improve. It's a great opportunity to refine movement skills, to address fundamental weaknesses in individuals, to bring up those weaknesses while along the journey also working on areas that are your strengths. So, we have a big focus on athletic movement and athletic performance potential within our running and field-based programs, to teaching guys to accelerate, to change direction, to decelerate, and really refining the movement characteristics of each of those qualities is very important to us because we feel it goes a long way to significantly reduce injury. And if we can create, the most resilient, robust player in that time, then we're going to be better served across the course of the season, because we know through anecdotal evidence and through research that the players that complete the most amount of training are on the field day in, day out. One, they're going to learn more technical, tactical stuff. So they're more exposed to the stuff that the footy coaches are giving them. So they're going to get better from a technical, tactical standpoint. But they're also creating this deep well of training load. And that deep well of training load is what serves them well in season. If we have episodes where individuals don't get that training load for whatever reason, whether it's injury, whether returning later in pre-season due to representative commitments, whether it be other external factors that we can't control, these individuals may go into the season underprepared. So if we can have everyone training, a high percentage of guys training week in, week out, then we know as a performance team we're doing the best we can to safeguard our squad against injury. And you've got to think the more our squad trains together in that pre-season period, the better our player relationships are going to be from a technical, tactical standpoint. The more opportunities they have to refine certain things, the more opportunities they get to rehearse their craft with one another. So, your systems and structures from a footy standpoint are also improved. So the big thing about preseason is we've got the time. We've got time to apply more time to speed, to apply more time to conditioning. Whereas, as you know, Chatty, when we come into the in-season period, that time is reduced from my end, specifically on the field, because we're focusing more on footy. Our job is to win that footy game on the weekend. And if we've been successful in pre-season, we've already got the work in, then it's more about regular doses, micro doses of certain training week to either maintain or slightly continually push the needle forward in those other qualities, whether it's speed, whether it's conditioning, yeah, so that's really what the preseason period's about, and obviously I could go into this in quite some depth, but hopefully that provides everyone with a little overview of why we rip into you boys across preseason.
No, that was awesome, mate. I guess give me from your end what the biggest challenges that the players face in preseason. Like, obviously, for me, it's probably obviously physically the hardest time of the year for all the training, the load, intensity, etc. But then mentally, obviously, it is summer. There's some hot days. There's sometimes we do 4 sessions a day. If you had to describe the biggest challenge, what would it be?
I think there are a number of challenges, and each challenge is different to an individual. So, I think your challenges are going to be different to another challenges relative to how you approach things.
Yep.
For application. So one of the biggest challenges I see is, and it's more of a self-inflicted challenge, is we've got an extras group. Our extras group is based on guys that come back in the preseason period with poor body composition and poor fitness. And generally, that is a result of their poor or lack of training practices across the off-season period. So they come back in and they have to take on extra sessions. And those extra sessions are sometimes uncomfortable. They're at uncomfortable hours, and they are uncomfortable sessions. They're designed to make you uncomfortable. And you've got to think, if an individual to more of an ideal condition, whether that be a body composition or a fitness characteristic, that time we have to spend as a physical performance staff getting them back to this time, in my opinion. So, for example, if you're 8 to 10 kilos overweight, and that's an extreme example, but if you're 8 to 10 kilos over your playing weight, then the additional conditioning that you're going to have to do is going to create more fatigue in the system. So you might not be as prepared for your next session because you've got to do these extra sessions, and that can add up. We've got to look at the conditioning, the team conditioning that we do. Are you able to keep up with the group in your current state? If you are not keeping up, you're falling behind. And then your team skills. Are you falling behind team skills because you just didn't point? And not going to, the coach can cater to the guy that's at the bottom. They keep pushing forward. They're catering to the guys at the top. So it's a bit of a lost opportunity for those guys in that period, that we have to provide those extra sessions to get them to a point where we expect them to have come back at. So that's a big challenge, because those guys have a fair bit of head noise in those sessions, as you can imagine. And then I guess you spoke on the mental side of things, and I think the mental side of things impacts everyone a little bit differently. You've got seasoned campaigners like yourself who have done it over and over again, and there's some mental aspects to the grind. Like, it can become quite monotonous preseason. Like, what a Monday looks like, what a Tuesday looks like, and after a while, everyone just wants to start playing footy, and they get sick of hearing me yelling at them through conditioning. So there's the mental challenges that come with that. But there's also, you've got to think of an individual doing their first NRL preseason. What challenges come with that? There's obviously the mental side of things, because they've never probably trained in a professional setup day in, day out, as we do in NRL. And then there's also the intensity and the amount of sessions. You mentioned we do sometimes 4 sessions a day, and having in place your own systems and structures to make sure you're prepared as best you can be for each session can be a challenge for individuals. So, for example, if we've got a field session into a weight session, into a wrestle session, into a stretch session, each of those sessions have to be prepared for differently, and it may require individuals to bring extra food, to have meal prep, and those things all provide challenges. So I think, as I said earlier, everyone will have different challenges along the way, and how they approach those challenges will be very individualized, but that's, I guess, where the performance coaching staff can help guide those through those challenging periods, so we can get through pre-season with you know a healthy squad play trials. Once footy's on the horizon, everyone's getting sick of me.
Yeah, that's an unreal answer, mate. And I guess we'll when you move into sort of in season, you did touch on the fact that training does change. Obviously, the loads go down a little bit because we are playing games, but also the aspect of footy and preparing each week, because each team we play is obviously very different. There's different tactics and so on. But from a physical standpoint, what is something that you think is extremely important physical for players to do each week that will help their preparation to make sure that they're able to play at their peak in the game on the weekend?
Yeah, you touched on it. In season is definitely a period of reduced training volume because we're working towards that game. But some things do have to stay consistent. And for me, there's a couple of things that need to stay consistent. And the first thing is strength. We know that if we can maintain a consistent level of strength, then we're giving ourselves our best chance to reduce our injury risk. If we move too far away from strength, then research tells us, anecdotal evidence tells us that players are going to increase their injury risk. So a consistent application of strength training is very important. We've got careful management of training loads. We're governed by them. So the turnaround effectively can dictate what we do across the course of a week. So if we've got a short turnaround, obviously there's only really one main training day of that week. So we can't be giving you a whole heap of load on that day because chances are we're still recovering from the previous the previous game. And the next game is very, very close. So the turnaround will dictate the appropriate level of training that we can give you, whether that be conditioning or certain elements of speed and agility. So managing that training load is very important and something that needs to be consistent. And then recovery, making sure we're managing our recovery both post-game, so recovering from the previous game, and making sure all those boxes are ticked in terms of tissue recovery, making sure all injuries are managed, making sure any niggles are gotten on top of, and then also managing the recovery at the back end of the week to make sure that on game day we're in the best state of readiness that we can be relative to that turnaround. Now, it's never going to be the case where you're feeling great on a short turnaround. Like some guys will feel better than others, but when you're on a short turnaround, there's always a little bit more fatigue in the system because you've had less days to recover, as opposed to a long turnaround. So it's just managing the week and managing the recovery. On a short turnaround, we change things in the gym just to make sure that we're still getting what we want, but we're controlling that overall load, because I don't want you guys feeling terrible on game day, but we still need to get the work in. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I guess the next phase is off-season. And obviously for us in the NRL, if you've done less than 6 pre-seasons, you get 6 weeks of off leave. And if you've done more than 6 pre-seasons, you get 8 weeks of leave. So is this a time where the players still get programs, or they're at home training, or they're focusing on recovery? How does the off-season work?
It's a period of both. For me, it's a period of recovery. It's an opportunity for players to reset, to get away, to be not professional athletes, whether that go on a holiday, spend time with your family, and not worry about your training too much. Now, in saying that, I do like guys to stay active. Like we're a physical bunch. Being physically active is part of what you do as a profession. So during that recovery period, I'd expect guys, maintaining, general levels of fitness. fitness. So whether, going for walks, riding family, doing some weight sessions here and there, and doing a little bit of conditioning. But that's that rest and recovery period where it gives you an opportunity to recharge. Like, I don't want them doing nothing, okay, but I want them staying physically active, okay, if you understand. But then moving on to specific programs, guys do need specific programs during that period of time. And sorry, specific's probably not the right word. They do need programs. We're not being highly specific with the programs and 6 weeks. So across both of those examples relative to who you are as a player, you do get a fair chunk of time off. You could have 2 to 3 weeks with minimal physical activity in terms of structured physical activity, just, a bit of weights here, a bit of movement there, and then still have a significant period of 2 to 3 weeks plus at the back end of your break to get yourself in a level of preparedness to come into preseason day one ready to go. And if I go back to what I mentioned earlier about the guys in extras, I want you not to be in extras. I don't want that for anyone, but sometimes that is a reflection of what guys have done in this break period. If they take liberties and have 8 weeks of zero movement and then come back and expect to come back at a level of readiness, then, that's probably not ideal. Whereas, for example, if I've got player A and player A has his 2 to 3 weeks off and relax with family, does some general activities, and then undertakes maybe 2 to 3 running programs and 2 to 3 weight programs a week leading into preseason, he's going to be in a much better state than someone that does nothing. Definitely. And who should we cater for? I know we cater for everyone, but are we going to bring training down to the quality of the guy that did nothing, or expect that as a professional athlete, you're still getting some level of training in, so when we come back, you're ready to go? So long story short, it is a period of recovery, but it's also a period of programmed training where I'd expect guys to be getting stuff done so they're ready for day one of preseason.
Yeah, look, I think you hit the nail on the head there perfectly. I find the off-season a little bit, I guess, challenging at times. The first sort of few weeks, I really take time to just relax, recover, maybe 2 to 3 weeks of no organised training. But in saying that, I'm still active. I'm still playing golf. I'm still going surfing. I'm still playing tennis, still all sorts of things. But then after those weeks, like you said, it's important that you start to build your training up and be ready to go physically. So then when you come back, we're obviously going straight into some physical testing. So for us, it's 1.2K time trial, and you can't go into that, not having done any work. So it's important that, we maintain, or we sort of start that sort of building block of where we want to get to as an athlete. But I'll move on to, I guess, the next phase of the chat. And this is more around, I guess, the athletes you've dealt with over your career so far. And I guess a question I had for you is, what are some of the habits of the most successful athletes you've seen in your time so far?
Habits. For me, you get what you repeat. And the best athletes that I've seen have a system in place to achieve their goals and processes that they follow to get better every session. Consistency in training, consistency in nutrition, recovery, sleep, consistency in doing your extras. Because we know an athlete that displays the habit of consistency in everything they do, they're going to be an athlete that generally trains more because they've got in place processes and behaviors and habits that allow them not to have too many great fluctuations in what they're doing. So, for example, if an athlete is consistent in their application towards training, okay, and then doesn't have repeated spikes in quality training, one day is really good, one day is really bad. Where if an athlete is more consistent, that athlete's probably going to get better. Same thing with their nutrition. If an athlete is consistently eating well and maybe has a cheat meal here or there, or an athlete that is consistent, is not consistent and has more poor meals as opposed to good meals, who's going to get the better results? So the system and the, I guess, the processes around creating that habit of consistency is something that I see the best performers and the most diligent athletes possess.
Well, next question was around like motivation for individuals, and obviously, rugby league players, we all come from extremely different backgrounds, different cultures and everything. Been brought up, differently, exposed to, a lot of different things throughout all of our lives. But I guess our motivation as a team is to win footy games. But then obviously there's an individual motivation, to be the best athlete you can be. But how do you tap into that motivation for, different type of athletes? I'm talking, for example, last season we had Bronson Cherry, who was an 18-year-old, and Paul Gallen, who was a 38-year-old. So there's 20 years difference between the two of them. Gal's a dad of 4. Bronson's just come out of school. So how do you tap into the motivation of, different players?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, or not necessarily a difficult one, but something that I'm always trying to reflect on. And generally, professional athlete is more intrinsically motivated than extrinsically motivated. So there's kind of a level of motivation to be better, to win, to have that personal fulfillment already exists. So I like to jump on the back of that. And the first thing for me is, I guess, gaining the player's respect and letting them know, forming that relationship with the player. So if the player knows that I'm actually there for them, I care for them, I want to make them better, then the motivation behind what we're doing is much easier to drive. And that, for me, those connections start with little chats daily, learning little bits about our athletes. And, obviously the Paul and the Bronson, completely different stages of their life. But, if I gain both of their respect, if I show interest and care about them, both as an athlete and as a person, then the ability to motivate them is much easier from my end. And part of that is including them in the process. And then, I do this with you a little bit, and that's reflecting on training, asking your opinion, getting you on board, seeking feedback from you guys. Now, it's something probably I do more so with senior players than junior players. Obviously, senior players have been around a lot longer than junior players. And it's not that I don't do it with junior players, but sometimes a junior player just needs to do what they're told in a sense, whereas a senior player that's been around, I want to include them in the process. It'd be silly of me in my role not to go to them for advice, because you've been at different clubs, you've had different managers in front of you, you speak to other people. I can learn from you. So if I include you in the process, I know that will drive your motivation as well.
Definitely.
I think creating a challenging and rewarding training environment, and within that challenging and rewarding training environment, letting everyone know that they can get better. And I think we've got that. I think everyone knows there's always opportunities for work and always opportunities to get better. But we can create that as a staff, both a footy staff and a performance staff. And if we challenge you and reward you in that environment, then you're going to be more motivated to give everything you can during those sessions. Moving to, I probably like to link the why of why we do everything. So if I tell you we're doing this exercise for a certain reason that improves your outcomes on the footy field, you'd be silly not to be motivated to do that exercise the best that you could, because you want to be a better footballer. So that's a big one, connecting with the why of why we do everything. And then finally, I think I just like to model within myself what I want my athletes to demonstrate. So that whether that be work ethic, whether that be consistency, whether that be, growth and development on my own practice. If I'm modeling that as a practitioner and you guys see that, hopefully that motivates you guys to do the same thing. So, I like to do a number of different things. And it's probably something that I've really reflected on in the past, because coming up and working with a lot of young kids, you've got to find ways to motivate motivate them. The motivation of a young kid is a lot different to a motivation of a professional athlete. And also, as you said, digging into the different backgrounds of individuals. So, you know, that five-prong approach with people. Everyone's motivated to the day baller and be a better person after our team evolved.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. I guess the next question I had was around, obviously every single day, you know, we're around the boys and spend a lot of time together. But for the people out there who might not know, who is the fittest at the Sharks? Give me one back and give me one forward.
Okay. So
On
are we lumping you on the field? Are we lumping you halves into the backs?
Yeah, we're
your own separate category.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If we're going to go I'd have to say probably Connor Tracy is our fittest back, and he did play in the centres the other week, so he's a certified back now. So he certainly is the fittest. And then for the forwards, I'd probably say Blake Brayley, and you know, playing 80 minutes in the middle as a hooker, you probably, if you're not winning that title as the fittest, you know, we've probably got some problems. So yeah, Blake's certainly the fittest there.
Yeah, I can definitely vouch. These two would have been definitely my first choices. Connor is an absolute freak, skin and bone, and Blake is the same. Just whenever, remember that yo-yo we did at Sutherland, and he wasn't even sweating at the end of it.
No, I don't think I've seen him sweat. Either he was, or he's just a machine. Even played 80 minutes, you know, obviously we've only played 2 games, but 2 80-minute efforts, and I don't think he sweated the entire time. You'd have to check on the field for me, Chatty.
All right, next question was for people out there. Who's the strongest at the Sharks, back and a forward?
Okay, back. So back, as you know, Chatty, we look at obviously relative strength, so relative to body weight, and we have a number of different lifts that we put together to quantify overall strength. And the strongest back was Jay Moz, but he's left us now. So it is a very close tie, believe it or not, between Ronaldo, yourself, and Jackson Ferris.
Yeah, beautiful.
So, as you know, Chatty, we look at our variety of lifts, and some of those guys may have you in different lifts, but you've got them in other lifts as well. So that's a 3-way tie at this given point. Forwards? And then, you know, it goes. Yeah, I don't think I even really need to mention this one. He's been on your podcast. Jack Williams. Jack Williams can lift the gym. He's very strong, and he's certainly strong enough for a and Jack could get stronger, actually, to be anything than he is. You know, having a good 1 RM for an exercise is great, but essentially, if that's all we're looking at, we're missing the picture. Strength is, you know, a tool that allows us to increase our athletic performance. It's not something that, although it is nice to say we've got a very big RM, and people do like that. Strength needs to be channeled appropriately, and you know, Jack is very strong, and we can channel that strength in many different ways to ensure Jack keeps getting more powerful and explosive without actually you know, having to increase those RM numbers, because they are through the roof.
All right, next question is, who is the biggest pest in the gym, and what do they do?
Oh, okay. So to be fair, I think we're pretty good. The boys are pretty good in the gym. Like there's not too many pests. But if I have to single anyone out, it'd have to be Toby Rudolph.
Yes.
And primarily due to his rubbish chat and his affection for acting and drop. he doesn't detract. He doesn't detract from anyone else's training, which is good. If he did, then I'd be upset. But we Toby, and he kind of stops.
All right. So I guess obviously at the Sharks, our high performance, we've got a whole array of staff. Sorry, everyone does their job, but describe to me the importance of having, a supportive, high performance staff where everyone buys into the program.
Oh, it's massive, mate. It's massive. There's within the footy team, you need everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. If you've got individuals that are not on the bus and then are not moving in a collective direction to get the guys better, then you're gonna have problems. And you got to think we spend more time with each other than we do our families. So you want the right people in the roles, and sometimes the right person may not be the best practitioner in the world, but they fit the environment perfectly. So it's very much about making sure you got the right people for the job. They fit into the culture. Don't get me wrong, we have robust discussions, but at the end of the day, everyone needs to be on the same bus moving forward, because that's going to get the best outcomes for you guys. And that's the most important thing for me, is that everyone is in it for the right reasons, and that is to get in the best performance potential and the best outcomes out of you guys week in, week out. And we certainly have that with the current staff that we've got. So it's massive, just as it is in a team with the players. You need everyone on board. If people aren't on board, then things like culture and identity and those types of things aren't where you need them to be. So very lucky we've got a good team here at the Sharks, and very happy to have a very supportive staff with all the players' best interests at heart.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. All right. Well, next question is, can you give me an example of one of our Sharks boys going above and beyond what's required as a professional athlete at the Sharks, to get them prepared for games or for competition?
Yeah, mate, I can probably give multiple examples, and I wouldn't say it's above and beyond, because it's so consistent, and I think it's just their practice. And for example, I know you, Jack, and Sorrow seek out extra recovery methods through the training week to ensure you're ready to go. I know guys take the Normatex home and get that work done. I know on days off, guys are in and doing extra work, whether it be kicking, whether it be extra conditioning work, whether it be getting an extra lift in to maintain hypertrophy. So I think gone are the days where only a couple of people are doing it. I think the majority see that they have to do it to maintain that competitive edge. I go for a walk in an afternoon and I see Brit and Nakora in the sea pools getting some extra recovery in. I've got guys sending me text messages and pictures saying, "Oh, I just did this little hypertrophy session at a different gym," and that's the stuff that you want to see.
Yep.
And sometimes, don't get me wrong, guys can get in the habit of doing too much, and be very much along the lines of, hey, sometimes it's okay to rest and to recover. They feel like they need to be doing. And then sometimes more isn't better, better is better. So making sure the opportunities, the training opportunities, when they're presented to you, you maximize those, because sometimes I think guys forget that we get better when we recover, because the training breaks us down. It's when we're away from training, our nutrition, our sleep, our recovery, they're the moments when we get better, where we recover. So next session we can go a little bit more. So, but I think you guys, the team as a whole, I think majority of you really, if we're going to say go above and beyond, are doing that weekly to have that competitive edge, or to find something to ensure that come game day, you're ready to go. And that's great. That's great. That's what you want as performance staff, to see your athletes doing that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think from when I first came into the NRL, only sort of a handful of players would do the extra stuff on their days off away from training. But now, as obviously the game's grown, the professionalism has grown, players, like a lot of our boys, are doing stuff on the day off and asking around, does anyone want to come to this? I'm going to go and do Pilates on my day off. Does anyone want to come to this? So yeah, it's awesome to see. My next question was around, I guess, the sports science and obviously the evolving industry that it is. How do you keep up to date with, changing trends in sports science, etc.?
Yeah, personally, I've got a really good network, and some great mentors within that network. Sorry. So I refer to that network quite frequently. I've got, friends in sports worldwide. So I've got, friends that work in the NFL, in Major League Baseball, in American soccer. I've got friends in US. I've got friends everywhere. And it's very important to have a network like that. So if we encounter a situation that maybe we haven't had before, I've got a network I can refer to and get advice and get help. So that's very important. I stay abreast of conferences. I go to conferences whenever I get the opportunity. I've done, site and visits and across facilities in the US before, podcasts, webinars, Twitter, journal articles, books. Like it was funny. I was talking to a colleague this morning and we were talking about how much work we're actually doing in this isolation period. And it's I guess when you're in this industry, you've got to keep moving forward. You've got to be very, very solid in your convictions of your training methods, but you have to understand that, there's always ways you can do things better. And if you're constantly learning, if you're constantly, seeking out new information, we're going to give a better product to you guys as players. And if you guys are better as players, then we're going to be better as a team, and ultimately we all want to win. And if I can have a small impact on that outcome, then I'm going to find every avenue I can to make you guys a better team and better individuals, both athletically and as people.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Well, really well said. I guess, all right, we'll move on to the last bit of the episode, and it's something I do quite regularly, which is include a lot of the listeners and a lot of the fans out there that might have a question for some of the guests. So I'll just shoot through these now. But the first one's from Poolsworthy, who asks, who in the Sharks would win a 100-meter sprint, a 400-meter run, and a 1,500-meter run?
Okay, 100-meter sprint. I think we've got a toss-up between Bronson and Ronaldo. I think they're our, and I think Sione Katoa might find his way into a third position there. Although Connor Tracy is a little bit of a dark horse, so I think that would be an interesting race. 400, I think probably Connor Tracy.
Yep.
He's gonna maintain a high speed.
Yes.
And he's got the capacity or the endurance to maintain that speed for a longer period of time. So I think Connor's gonna get that one. And then 1,500. Now 1,500. I think that there's a couple of candidates there. I think you'd be a successful candidate in that 1,500 group, Chatty. I think Connor again.
Yep.
I think Blake Brayley, and I think Teague Wilton might be a little dark horse in there. So they're
Williams
probably
maybe even as well.
Yeah, I think Jack Williams would have a go, but I think Jack he'd probably gas out around the 100-meter, the K mark.
Yes.
All those extra deadlifts may jack up the Gary Jack and struggle for the last 500 meters.
All right. My next question is from Joel Robbins, and obviously, a lot of us are in isolation at the moment. Abiding by the rules of social distancing. Joel Robbins asked, best way to stay in shape and improve at home?
Best way to stay in shape and improve at home. So if obviously in isolation, we can still get out there and do some running. So, whether that is, going for just a long steady state run, or whether that's going down to the park and doing some interval work. That's all possible. It's the world's your oyster in terms of your running. You can go out and run for 5Ks, or you can do 2 to 3Ks of intervals and get, different training effects. But that's certainly can be doing in this time. Obviously, any sort of speed training you can do and do, get a good heart response from that, good training outcome from that. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend going out and doing sprints straight off the back if you haven't done any sort of sprint training for a considerable period of time. But there's many opportunities to do that. And then you've got, bodyweight exercises. You can, there's so many different examples of bodyweight strength exercises now, obviously considering our current circumstances online. You can jump on it and grab something. And then you can also create, creative ways at home to add load. So, for example, I've created a little program for some other colleagues around filling a backpack full of water bottles, and you can squat with that, you can lunge with that, you can hinge with that, you can do single arm overhead pressing with that. It's just you're limited by your own imagination, and if you struggle with that, as I said, there's many online resources now that are free for people to look at some sort of at home conditioning. But isolation is certainly by no means an excuse to not do anything. If anything, it's an excuse to start something back up, because you've got a little bit more time to invest in yourself, considering not as many of us are working at this given point.
Yeah, look, I would echo Matty's thoughts there, Joel. The biggest thing is just to firstly start and then stay consistent with your training. Like, you've got plenty more time to improve yourself. Why not, make that a priority for yourself? Next question is from Wire Mariah. Pick one guy in the squad who is a dead set freak. Example, can do things other guys cannot.
So in terms, I guess you can look at that in many different ways. You can look at that on athletically. Some guys that can just do certain things on the field that you didn't think were possible. And the first person that comes to mind is Sione Katoa. Like, just some of his try finishes are ridiculous. And you see him practice in certain things at training. But, even the games that we've played this year, he scored some amazing tries through this finishing ability that's next level. So that's something that, can you train for that? To a degree you can, but I think a lot of that is just innate talent that Sione has. If you look at some of the performance stuff from Jack Williams in the gym, you've seen it, Chad. He does, maximum 3RM lifts, and doesn't even change the expression on his face. It looks like, it looks like he's picking up 20 kilos. So, Rob Leslie, our strength. Yeah, Rob Leslie, our strength coach, he's very excited when Jack does those amazing lifts. And to be fair, they're outstanding feats. And then, you can look at it another perspective. You can look at it, Blake Brayley playing 80 minutes in the middle, in his essentially his first year of NRL. Yeah, he played some games last year, but he's starting. He's our number one hooker. So there's some outstanding efforts there. And then, you, Chatty, the amount of work you get through a game is just astronomical compared to other people, I'm sure, in your position. So there's so many different examples of guys, having these outstanding talents. And, you can look at Andrew Fafita and what Andrew can do considering his body size. You know, Braden Newelly, powerful and explosive he is, and how fast he is at his body weight. So there's examples like one for every single person. Wade Graham coming back from his ACL injury, Toby Rudolph, how he's, you know, I shouldn't be giving Toby a rap, but how Toby's came back from his ACL and you know the Cliff Churchill medal that he won. So, and I do know it's Clive, but I call it Cliff because nobody knows who Toby is yet.
Oh, I love that.
So,
all right. Next question. Next question.
Example.
Sorry, man. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I definitely agree. Each athlete, or you know, one of our boys, are obviously in the position they are through obviously talent, hard work, dedication. But next question is from Oscar Schoon. What's a normal recovery day entail for the Sharks?
Normal recovery day. Well, generally our recovery day is post game. So it's game +1, and you know get a heart rate response in that water. Obviously, that heart rate response facilitates, you know, blood circulation, which helps clear, I guess, byproducts of exercise and some of those harmful waste products that are evident after heavy collisions. So we get guys moving in the pool. Variety of different movements, variety of swimming strokes, them an opportunity to obviously for us is to see them. So if something has popped up overnight, maybe wasn't a concern when they left the ground, it allows us to be across that and implement any type of process that we need to take to manage that concern across the course of the week. So that's very important. It also gives an opportunity for us just to touch base with players and reflect on how they're going, how they are mentally. Generally, everyone's probably a little bit down in the dumps, but I think after recovery and after seeing each other, spirits are lifted a little bit. And also there's some massage in that process. So obviously a good flush massage helps with the removal of metabolic waste products as well that are going to be detrimental to recovery, and we get a bit of change in tone of the muscle through hands-on technique. Guys, you know, get some treatment from physios if they need acute treatment. The doc's there providing any sort of advice and treatment the doc needs. And just we get a check-in on body composition. So how have they recovered from a hydration standpoint? Because we know if we can get hydration, if we can get body weight back on track, then we can get the recovery process moving a little bit quicker, as opposed to if an athlete struggles to get that body mass back on post game. So there's a few things going on a recovery day. But also bearing in mind that we do like the athletes to spend time with family and get some rest and recovery in at home as well, because that's pretty important, because not everyone responds to the same recovery stimulus. Like some guys, their recovery might be, you know, sitting at home, their best recovery sitting at home watching Netflix with their family. So you've got to take into account the psychosocial aspect of recovery as well as the physical aspect.
Yeah, well, awesome, mate. All right. Well, I guess the last question is from Liam behind the lens. He asks, are there any sacrifices you've had to make to be where you are now? And I'll just quickly jump in here before you start, Matty, because I don't want to embarrass Matty here, but he has pretty much started from the bottom in the Sharks. And by that, I mean from the junior reps, you know, working up through the under 20s, then reserve grade, and then all the way up to the top NRL. Now, in his first season of head of physical performance, has been doing an outstanding job. So it's been a pleasure to work with you, Matty. And obviously, this has been over the course of 10 years of hard work. So the question is, are there any sacrifices you've made to get to where you are now?
Yeah, thanks for the compliment there, Chad. Yeah, Yeah, probably better to ask my wife about the sacrifices, but it has been a 10-year plus journey, and reflecting on it, I'm probably more fortunate than most in that I've had the opportunity to work at every single level within the Sharks organisation, and whether the players like it or not, I've actually been some of our players is their only strength coach pretty much their entire rugby league career. So that's like, I knew Connor Trey example. I can remember, like, Connor did leave us, but I can remember training Connor in our back gym, which is now our physio treatment area, when Connor was 13. And now Connor's obviously Connor's an NRL player. Connor's an adult. So I've known Connor for that long. Guys like, Billy Magoulias, Blake Brayley, who else in that crew? Help me here, Chatty. The mind goes blank. Britton Nakora. All of these guys, I've essentially, they've had to deal with me their entire careers at the Sharks. So that's why probably Jaden Brayley left, because I think Jaden Brayley's only strength coach for a given period of time. But it's for me, they probably weren't sacrifices, because when you're passionate about something and you've got a love for what you do, it's not really a sacrifice. You do what you got to do to get the best outcome. And I do have a very understanding wife. But now with having a young family, there probably are a little bit of sacrifices, because you like to spend as much time as you can at home. But in the roles that we do, they're not just 9 to 5 roles. They're 24/7 roles. You're always on. You're always thinking about work. You're always making sure where as a squad we need to be to keep moving forward. So I think the sacrifices will just be a little bit of time at home, but you just make sure when you're at home, you're actually at home. You're actually trying to tune out, and you're being present at home. So that's probably one of the biggest sacrifices. And in saying that, across the course of the journey, I did spend a year in China by myself. So my missus had it may have been a sacrifice or not, but she didn't have to put up with me for a year while I was in China. So whether or not that was a sacrifice, I'll let her. It was probably a gift in disguise for her. But it's certainly, I don't see anything as a sacrifice. I see, I'm very lucky to have had the opportunities I've had at the Sharks, and very lucky to have worked with some great people and along the way, and had the opportunity to work with a lot of you guys for a very long period of time.
Well, awesome, Matty. I really appreciate your insight there today. Obviously, I feel like we could talk for hours on a whole range of a lot of other topics, but I will wrap it up there, mate. I really appreciate your time, and stay safe in isolation, mate.
I will, mate. I will. It's a time for us all to try and stay as safe as we can, and flatten the curve, and keep our training happening and as well.